Protesters under siege. Witnesses on the ground in Syria's third largest city, Homs, say government tanks are shelling residential areas. Advancing in the east, Libyan rebels gain ground against Gaddafi's forces near to the key oil town of Brega and the besieged port of Misrata. Working for greater balance, China and the US agreed to develop more balanced trade and investment between the world's two largest economies. And rebuilding ruins, we go to Sichuan province to see how reconstruction projects are progressing 3 years since the quake of 2008. Hello and welcome to CCTV News, live from Beijing. I'm Karen Roberts. In Syria, witnesses say army tanks have shelled a residential district in Homs, which is Syria's third largest city. The sound of explosions from artillery and heavy machine guns were reportedly heard on Monday. Homs has emerged as the most populous centre for defiance against President Bashar al-Assad's rule. A protester said a demonstration broke out earlier after tanks stormed several neighbourhoods on Sunday, killing 3 civilians. Well, for more on Syria, let's now speak to Dominic Evans. He is the Reuters bureau chief in Lebanon's capital, Beirut. Hello to you, Dominic.
Hello, good morning.
Hi. The Syrian government says life is returning to normal. Is that really a truthful statement, or what more can you tell us on that?
Well, I think the message that the advisor to President Assad, Hussein Shaban, was trying to put out yesterday was at least that they felt that the government has passed the most dangerous stage of the uprising. She said, "We hope we are witnessing the end of the story now." The protests have been running for nearly 8 weeks, and in the last 2 weeks, the authorities have sent tanks into a number of cities to crush the protests. What we have seen in the last few days is some tanks pulling out of the southern city of Deraa. Some people who were arrested in the coastal city of Banias were freed overnight. About 200 or 300 people were freed. So in some places there is perhaps a calming of the situation. However, as you just said, there are reports of tank shelling in the city of Homs, the third biggest city in Syria, this morning. So it's not the case that in many parts of the country that life is returning to normal. And we would wait, of course, until Friday in 2 days' time for the Friday prayers, which have traditionally in the last 2 months been the high point of protest when people come out of weekly prayers. So that will be another point that people will be looking to in the next 2 days.
OK, thank you very much for that. That was a bit of a mixed picture then from Dominic Evans, the Reuters bureau chief in Lebanon's capital, Beirut, reporting on what's happening in Syria at the moment. Rebels in the east of Libya have gained ground on Gaddafi's forces around the key oil town of Brega and the besieged city of Misrata. The advances follow heavy bombardments by NATO warplanes as well as a major assault on Tripoli. CCTV correspondent Nathan King reports now from the road between Ashdabia and Brega.
New battle for Brega seems to be on. Columns of vehicles that pass here with heavy weapons, new recruits going in towards Brega. What happened in the last 24 hours is that some rebel forces did make it into Brega. They say they killed up to 200 Gaddafi forces, a mixture of mercenaries and regular forces. 7 rebels have died. We attend the funeral of Saeed al-Away. He died in this latest assault on Brega. A former Libyan army officer, he fought now with the rebels. His death is celebrated here. The ultimate price paid for a different Libya, say his comrades. He leaves 6 sons. His youngest, Abdul Salim, fulfills a promise to his father to read a special verse from the Quran in the event of his death. From 19-year-old Ramzi, another pledge. We can all die for our country, he says. I've decided I will go to the front line and do as my father did. I will use my father's gun. Back at the front, similar sentiments. Families united through generations. Salah Bukafaya says, I'm an old man. We have been through the Italian occupation, and I am happy to see this new generation with so much determination. Determination is not in short supply, but everything else is. If this long-awaited battle is here, it is sure to claim more victims on both sides. The prize, one of the richest oil towns in the country. The cost in blood is already high. Nathan King, CCTV, on the road to Brega, Libya.
Libyan government officials have released around 150 detainees who they say had participated in anti-government activities. The men were handed over to tribal leaders in Tripoli. The officials say Tuesday's handover was a gesture to encourage rebels to give themselves up to government forces or to tribal leaders. The United Nations says almost everyone on board a ship carrying 600 African migrants to Europe is thought to have died. The vessel broke apart within sight of the Libyan capital Tripoli. Aid agencies are appealing to NATO and the European Union to intervene. Su Yuting has more.
Fleeing conflict in Libya has become almost as dangerous as staying behind to fight. Hundreds of desperate migrants have drowned after their vessel went down off the coast of Tripoli on Friday. This comes after at least 800 migrants fleeing Libya had already been lost at sea in 3 boat sinkings. In late March, one migrant ship had been left adrift for weeks, ignored by military aircraft. It said that NATO has not given any response after people on board called for help. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees has questioned whether Europe is doing enough to help.
Possible that you have a boat for 2 weeks adrift without any kind of intervention. In a moment when we know that there are so many activities going on, this sounds really difficult to accept.
But NATO has denied that its units were involved in the incident.
Ships under NATO command will always respond to calls from ships in distress. This is their duty under the law of the sea, and to suggest that our ships' captains would do otherwise is unfair and is disrespectful.
The UN has also accused the Libyan government of complicity in these deadly smuggling incidents. The number of people rushing to land on the tiny Italian island of Lampedusa is still increasing. It may be the price European nations pay for their military and political operations in Libya. Su Yuting, CCTV.
The UN Security Council has once again met to discuss the issue of protecting civilians in Libya. Li Baodong, China's permanent representative to the UN, said no country can use the protection of civilians as a way of enacting regime change.
Each country should firmly abide by the Charter of the United Nations. The prior responsibility to protect civilians lies in the very governments involved. International community and outside organizations can provide constructive aids, but they should stick to the principle of objectivity and neutrality and fully respect the involved countries' sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity.
Violence has erupted in the Egyptian city of Alexandria. It appears to be a continuation of recent sectarian conflict between Christians and Muslims. Christians gathered on the seafront on Tuesday to protest at the violence against them in Cairo before Muslims attacked them with sticks. Police arrived on the scene after 15 minutes and dispersed the crowd. The deadly riots in Cairo over the weekend left 13 people dead. The incident has increased worries in Egypt over Islamic ultra-conservatives known as Salafis. Egypt's military rulers are struggling over how to deal with them. The Iraqi Ministry of Defense continues to experiment with different programs to build up the capability of its security forces. As part of one project, the National Defense University is expected to become the largest professional military academy in the Middle East. Our correspondent Baki Naked reports.
The National Defense University is one of the important Iraqi military facilities. This university graduates teachers in different specialties such as languages, ethics and discipline. And all that is still under the supervision of the NATO and American forces. At the Languages Center, they teach German, Farsi, Italian, French and English. The trainees show their desire to develop such skills as part of their mission in serving their country.
We came here to develop our skills by how we can teach English in the future, how to be a good teacher, how to use a new rule, and how to make students interested from this study. So everybody here to be a good teacher in the future.
There is also a new project under study to establish a new military academy called Mesopotamia University, which will gather most of the Iraqi military institutions, and it is expected to be the largest in the Middle East.
There is a timeline to complete the plans of this university. Also, there are continuous meetings to determine the personnel of this special academy and who will work in it. As well, there are special timings to complete the buildings and transferring the intended universities to that place.
Very big, very nice compound for this international academy. So we want to bring here the main military institution like the National Defense College, the National Defense University and the Iraqi War College. Maybe also additional institutions can join here. Now we are studying how to bring them together to merge all the capability in order also to rationalize all the staff of this institution.
It is also expected that the new military academy will give training courses not only for the Iraqi officers, but also to officers from regional countries. Developing such military facilities is part of completing the readiness, ability and capability of the Iraqi security forces, especially when the American forces are supposed to be completely withdrawn from Iraq by the end of this year. Bakan Aqid reporting for CCTV from the National Defense University in Baghdad.
This is CCTV News, still ahead in the programme. Working for greater balance, China and the US agreed to develop more balanced trade and investment between the world's two largest economies. And coordinating strategy, Japan's nuclear envoy meets his South Korean counterpart in Seoul to discuss resuming stalled talks over the DPRK's nuclear program. After signing a framework agreement on comprehensive economic cooperation, China and the United States have concluded 2 days of talks in the American capital, Washington. Yang Yan has the story.
Under the framework agreement, China and the US will work to develop a more balanced trade and investment relationship. Both countries say they recognize the importance of open trade investment for promoting innovation, creating jobs, and boosting incomes and economic growth. They voiced their commitment to further expanding bilateral trade investment, fostering more open trade investment globally, and fighting against trade investment protectionism. The two countries agreed to resolve bilateral trade and investment disputes in a constructive and mutually beneficial manner. On the value of the dollar and the Chinese currency, the U.S. pledges to maintain vigilance against excess volatility in exchange rates, and China pledges to continue to enhance RMB exchange rate flexibility. On the issue of market access, the two countries say they recognize the importance of the principle of non-discrimination in government procurement and innovation policies. On financial cooperation, China and the US say they support an open environment for investment in financial services and cross-border portfolio investment. The two countries also reaffirmed their continued support for strong protection of intellectual property rights. Yang Yan, CCTV.
China's Vice Foreign Minister Jiang Zhejian says China and the US have agreed to start talks on Asia-Pacific affairs. He made the announcement at a press briefing at the Strategic and Economic Dialogue in Washington.
It would be inappropriate for China and the U.S. to talk about cooperation at the global level without cooperation in the Asia-Pacific region. We do hope the launch of this mechanism will further promote some interactions between our two countries in the Asia-Pacific region so that we can together make positive contributions to regional peace, stability and development.
Jiang says the participants and coordinators of the consultation on Asia-Pacific affairs will be top officials from China's Foreign Ministry and the US State Department. Jiang also says the frequency of the meetings will be decided at